Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy Phoenix here, back at you again with a new video. A new video that we're going to do a little bit differently this time. I apologize for not uploading more often, as I am someone who is incredibly lazy and puts zero effort into making YouTube anything of substance, and here I am trying to change that. So, starting today, I would like to write a love letter to my favorite game of all time, that being Destiny 2. As you all know, recently the new expansion Lightfall has released back on March 6th. We are now in a new world, a new planet, a new destination, new story beats, new subclass, new weapons, new locations, all the good that we get from every Destiny DLC every year. Unfortunately, as many are also aware, there has been a severe disconnect between different parts of the community and the narrative. I think overall, it's pretty clear that Lightfall has landed well as a DLC in terms of gameplay changes, weapon sandbox balancing, but narratively, it left a lot to be desired by a lot of people, and it seemed to split the community pretty heavily between people who genuinely enjoyed it or thought that because of the narrative, the whole game was terrible and it's just time to move on. I am not here to argue opinions on whether you enjoyed what is narratively there, or if you didn't enjoy what was narratively there. That is not for me to say. That is subjective, and that is for each individual to take on their own and dig into it how they feel and make their own opinion. What I am here to discuss is a fundamental issue that Destiny has seemed to have since its inception over 9 years ago. Destiny and Bungie's narrative team has always written incredibly in-depth, philosophical, and interesting stories that are fun to engage with, they're fun to follow, they are interesting, and they can be captivating. The problem Bungie seems to have is not writing its stories. The problem Bungie seems to have is presenting those stories. If you look back at Destiny 1 and into Destiny 2 as well, there are hundreds of lore tabs and lore books explaining all this incredible information, backstory, side story, things going on in other people's heads, going on in other instances around your character, to add context, life, intrigue, and substance to the world at large that Destiny exists in. The problem is it doesn't work with the game. And I think Bungie wants to write a game that works a certain way, and the community is very, very opposed to that. Part of that is the community's fault because Bungie can make the game that they want to make. Part of that is Bungie's fault because they are not delivering the story that people are interested in a manner in where people can chew on it and enjoy it. It's a tough push and pull. It's not an easy thing to balance. I give all props to the game devs at Bungie for doing what they do already and how much effort they put in. It's very clear that you communicate, you care, you want to produce a better game for the people that play it, and you are willing to take risks and make changes. Although those changes may take some time. With all this being said, that leaves us with our problem. It's presentation. So where does this come from? Well, before we get there, I just do want to express one thing. I will not be discussing Lightfall story beats or its narrative during this process. We have all played it. We know what is going on. There is a clear understanding in the community of what was liked, and I think what wasn't liked now almost a month after its release. Clearly, we had good things like Callus's story being finished, Neomuna being an amazing patrol space, having great lore around the patrol space. We have incredible story beats regarding the darkness and how we change our perspectives to wield it compared to the light where we change our instruments. There was great narrative beats between Callus and the Witness, Osiris and Rohan and our Guardian, Kaido and our Guardian, but there were, of course, a number of things missing. Again, these are up to the person, and choose how you feel about it however you want. I coin this term, and I'll throw it here on screen for you, lore-itis. This has been Bungie's issue for 9 years. And there's a very clear reason, in my opinion, on why. So for the rest of this video, we're going to discuss why in the first part, and then we're going to discuss how we could possibly solve this and a solution I have that may work It's up to Bungie, of course, if they want to implement it. So let's get right into it. Lore-itis, the inability to naturally or coherently express narrative design and beats in a manner that is enough to create an engaging and followable story while allowing lore to be an addition to help express and fulfill separate, non-focal side narratives. Why has this happened? I want to take you on a bit of a journey. When I go back to a day a long, long time ago, about 9 years ago, when Destiny first released onto the market. Destiny had a set game structure that existed for its first 3 years, this being Vanilla D1, The Taken King, and Rise of Iron. The player base was way smaller than it was ever been. The focus of the game was in different places than it is now. And, well, D2 is a whole different beast and a whole different ecosystem. But the issues that prevalated from the beginning of the game have seen their way through all the way to the end through both Destiny 1 and 2. So, how did this problem occur? In Destiny 1, the game worked in one way. You played the game for the gameplay. The story was almost all in the lore, way more than we ever had in D2. And that was it. When you got on to play Destiny, you didn't get on to learn more story. You didn't get on to read some lore. You got on to raid. You got on to raid every single week. You got on to do your regular raid. You got on to do your hard mode raid, and you'd grind. And you played the game for the game's content. You didn't play it for narrative. And this led to an era of, in my opinion, Destiny being all about its gameplay and nothing about its story. And that being great, particularly for the hardcore community, because raiding was the pinnacle content of everything, and everything else was below that. So the focus of the game was on the hard mode content, on GMs, on hard mode raids. That's where all the focus of the game was progression and RPG improvement to go higher in your level and to go into harder activities. D2 has shifted drastically from that focal point. Destiny is no longer about the raids. It's no longer about the strikes. It's no longer about the Crucible. It's no longer about the new locations. It's about narrative. That's why every week for 4 seasons of the year, we get new story 8 times a season. 6 to 8 times, depending on how the seasons run. We have gone from a game whose focus was raiding and pinnacle PvE content to a game whose focus is 100% about telling a long-form, long-standing narrative over 10 years. This is my opinion why raids are no longer the pinnacle of everything. Why certain things maybe feel a bit more lackluster than they used to back in Destiny 1. It's because it's not about it anymore. It's not about having a Last Wish raid race. It's not about having Taken King raid race, where that was it. That's what you played for a whole year was King's Fall before you would go and play the new expansion. Every week is something new to digest narratively. And this has become the new focal point of the game as a whole. That's okay. We can sacrifice one thing for another. That's perfectly fine. The problem is that the storytelling of old, I don't think has caught up with the game of new. We live in a world now where we expect exposition, narrative fulfillment, direct explanation for what is going on in our story from a game that has been telling its story in lore cards for 9 years. We have a community that wants one thing and a game that wants to provide another. Thus, you have lore-itis. Let's compare it, though, for a minute, before we go on to how we can fix this, to another extremely successful genre of games in the industry that do nothing but lore, and it's praised. So clearly they're doing something right. The Soulsborne series. Yeah, no, I know. They're a lot different than Destiny. But something that Souls has always done, and very well, interestingly enough, is that there is no story. There is nothing explained through playing the game. Almost all of the story of the Souls games is explained through weapon tabs, armor lore, and that's it. It's through lore, through things and items you pick up in the environment. Now, this is praised as a great way to explain narrative because the player that isn't interested doesn't have to pay any attention. You can enjoy the game for its gameplay, while the player that is super interested can go around and read all the item tabs. And I think Bungie was attempting to accomplish the same thing. If you want to just raid to raid, come raid. If you want to also know why you're raiding, then you can read the lore tab. But that's not what the community wants anymore. The community wants explanation. So, all right, we have a game that wants to explain things the same way another game explains things, that is praised for how it explains things. What's Bungie's problem? Where does this lie? Why? Why is this a problem? I think it's because there is no driven incentive for a player to engage in broadening their deeper knowledge into the story. Now, when we say incentive, that's a dangerous word that can mean a lot of different things. Could be loot, could be a triumph, could be a checkbox, it could be anything, something to earn. And I would be a little concerned if we made all the lore in a location just drop you a whole bunch of red borders and guns. That might be a problem too. Maybe not. Again, I'm not a game designer. But we have all these lore books. We have all this brilliant writing that people are actively choosing not to engage in, and a small subset of us are. And it makes a big divide on how much people enjoy the game. Witch Queen was a perfect example of how to do this correctly. You have straight up story, massive story beats. New players who don't understand what's going on can come in from the beginning to the end and understand what's happening. Pick up Lightfall and know where they left off from the Witch Queen expansion, not needing the individual seasons in between for the hardcore player, someone who's going to stick around. Lightfall, just as Bife, Lore Daddy, mentioned in his video, does not do this. A new player does not have enough to sink their teeth into to understand what's happening from the beginning of the DLC to the end, to then go into final shape and not feel like they missed something. So we need to produce something that is going to support, push, incentivize the reading and the engagement of the lore within the game. And I think there's a great way to do this. Neomuna is one of the greatest patrol spaces I think we have ever received in Destiny. You can disagree with me if you want, that's fine. Not a problem. I think it is. I think it's vibrant, it's interesting, it's dense with a lot of enemies in the areas most of the time, and it has some incredibly interesting lore to it. But that lore isn't explained well. You have a city full of people who have uploaded themselves into a conscience program where they can all exist as holograms within the city that they reside in. And you can see these holograms all over the place, just existing, watching us engage in our lifelong battle to protect Neomuna. That is a living world. But what happens with the Cloud Arc and with those people is not thoroughly explained to the player who's just following along. You have to go find that information. That's a problem. Now, it's not a problem that you have to find that information. I don't think that's the issue. The issue is that there is no good way for the casual player to find said interest in acquiring that lore. I think having collectibles and patrol zones is a great idea. I think finding our Lucent moths and our little Nimbus statues, little Nimbus action figurines is cool. Adds something tangible to go find in the world. But I think we need to consider something here, Bungie. Let's consider decoupling lore tabs with collectible options or collectible items. You build patrol spaces with 3 to 4 important areas with so many of these beautiful side areas that are used for main missions that often don't get re-explored after they're done. If you want the casual player to engage harder in this system, in my opinion, this is what you should do. Design something that allows the player to re-enter the patrol space, so therefore utilizing it, because they're not often utilized enough in my opinion. Explore these off the beaten path areas, almost like the Throne World did with its deep sight. You find a new path, you find a chest behind a wall. Allow us to do something like that, but provide it with something you can collect. Maybe not a collectible, like a fragment you just pick up off the ground, that gives you some type of medium to small amount of exposition regarding a maybe more vague story beat that also provides the lore book for the player who really wants to know everything to then go open their menu, engage, and read. That way you provide explorability to old areas, or areas that, well, at least, they'll be used for longer than the first month of the year that they come out. You will have better exposition for particularly the more casual player on why the worlds that exist in Destiny do, why we're there, how they came to be. If you had gone to the Cloud Arc facility or somewhere near it and you collected something that gave you exposition and direct understanding of what was going on with the people in the Cloud Arc in a bit more of a direct sense, you have world exploration that provides story building that creates more intrigue in what is going on in the world as a whole, not just in the 8 campaign missions. This can further introduce smaller and more detailed story points to general players. And it forces, again, that returning, that exploration of these worlds. And Bungie is making bigger and bigger patrol spaces. That's fantastic. Make the Throne World, make Neomuna, make them big. But we need reasons to go enjoy that vastness. And I think having contextual clues and contextual explanations within your environments will add so much value to how you explain a narrative and how you explain a story. I think a perfect example of this is actually already in the game, and that's Nezarec's whispering to you while you are actively engaging in the patrol zone of Neomuna. This provides context on the raid boss, what he's up to, why does he believe what he believes in some way, right? The god of pain and suffering. It added something to enjoy while you were out exploring the location. And that was great. I just don't believe it should be tied to random dialogue where you may or may not ever see it. It should, again, be tied to something that is tangible, findable, that promotes exploration and promotes engaging and living within the worlds that you have made as a company in this awesome game that we all share. So this is just a theory, a thought, something I've been thinking about for a few weeks now. I wanted to throw in a YouTube video with some concise thoughts, see what people think of it. Feel free to agree or disagree. Leave why you do or don't in the comment section below. Hopefully, I will be producing YouTube videos a lot more often from this point forward. So if you did enjoy this, or you want to be involved in this discussion, or you want to see more of me having some takes and, trying to deconstruct the game, or any game for that matter as a whole, to figure out how it could be improved, again, please let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think, and y'all have a wonderful day. Peace.